Hey now, and welcome to the Cardinals Stand Out in Your Career podcast presented by the Alumni Relations Office. My name is Nic Taylor. I'm the Executive Director of Alumni Relations here at Saginaw Valley State University. And today I'd love to welcome an alum, Ms. Karlie Robinson. She's the Small Business Consultant here at SVSU with our Small Business Development Center located right in the Carmona College of Business. So welcome, Karlie. Happy to have you.
Thank you for having me, Nick.
We're excited. So I want to get a little bit first before, today's topic, we're going to talk all about starting a business, whether it's a small business, right in your expertise field. Can you maybe give us a little bit of your background in entrepreneurship and working with other entrepreneurs to get started?
Yeah. So like a lot of people, I would fall into the serial entrepreneur category. And it started with some smaller kind of, maybe we even call them false starts early on. And I had just had my first kid in July of 2003. And my husband came home from work and he said, I got us a new .com. And he will tell you that my exact quote was, what the hell are we going to do with it? Because again, I'm at that parenting phase where it's like babysitting, but nobody's coming to get, nobody's coming to pick up their kid because, oh, it's your kid. Oh, good. And so we're doing what now? And so I essentially told my husband, I'm like, I have $300 in like previous kind of side hustle money. This idea can have that money, but when that money is gone, we are going to return to our regularly scheduled lives. Because that was all I was really kind of in the mood for, so to speak. And then, as life happens, baby number 2 came along 14 months later. Yeah. But I had made over $100,000 with that silly website.
Nice.
But my dad was a union carpenter and my mom was a chef. What do I know of P&Ls and Schedule C's and marketing and all these kind of things? So I was originally living in New York State at the time. And so I was hanging out with a group called SCORE. At that time, they were known as the Service Corps of Retired Executives. I lovingly called them my answerers of stupid questions. But all of this like secret handshake stuff that I just hadn't been exposed to, I could go ask. But by 2007, I figured I can answer some of these basic questions. And we'd been running an e-commerce. And again, this is SCORE. So one of my fellow volunteers was Howard, who retired from Kodak in 1986. Howard does not want to answer the e-commerce questions. Yeah. So come on in. But it was a very much one of these things is not like the others. I was dropping my kids off at preschool and going to the country club to have this. And I'm parking my Kia next to a car that costs more than my house kind of place. I'm just like so out of my league, but I stuck with it. But even in like my first SCORE meeting, the treasurer, he gets up and he's like, well, here's our P&Ls. And I'm like, okay, I can see what's happening on the screen. I understand, but what does P&L stand for? And so I took a pen and I wrote P&L on my hand so I could look it up later because I was like, wait till these guys find out that I am an idiot.
Right.
Like the imposter syndrome was rolling big time that day. But I stuck it out. And I thought it was pretty decent that I was doing this consulting as a community college dropout. Yeah. So when I did community college the first time, I had a 1.47 GPA. And I didn't think school was in the cards for me. So here I am just out here hustling. And I've got this business. We actually ran it for 12 years. We were 6 figures every year that we operated it. But like the 2008 housing crisis kind of stuff. And now our income looks like trash. And I've got 2 dependents. And so I filled out the FAFSA and I told my husband, I'm like, look, I have a free ride through Mott Community College. The kids are in school all day. I will be back later.
Yeah.
And so I started that journey. So I got my associates in 2014, had a couple little hiccups, but I finally got my bachelor's in 2017. And then, a bachelor's degree kind of then opened up those doors I needed to take those skills I had and put a credential with it so that I wasn't automatically getting circular filed because although I had the experience and had business chops, I didn't have the credential piece to go with it. And so, yeah, I ended up in a couple like real jobs again. Yeah. And then found my way to SVSU as an employee as well.
That's awesome. So you came to SVSU and you started working as a small business consultant for the
Yep.
SBDC, which we effectively know here
Yep.
on campus all the time. And then you became an alumni. I want to make sure that's an important part of this,
Yeah.
right?
So I actually had started my master's degree because,
Hmm.
again, I found myself in that same situation that I was at the bachelor's degree, that there were jobs that I could do with like my eyes closed and one hand tied behind my back, but I wouldn't be able to get my foot in the door
Right.
without their credentials. So I'm like, I'm probably going to need an MBA.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had actually started at Flint because I had gotten
Okay.
my bachelor's at Flint. And so I
Yeah.
was like, well, I'll just go back to Flint. But where I was working, they had restructured and they kind of didn't need me for what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I wanted to do and what they wanted me to do didn't jive. And I was like, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
And so, but the SBDC had a position open here at SVSU. And yeah, you guys don't get a lot of master's program transfers, but
Yeah. I like it.
but here I was. But because I was an employee, I was able to take advantage of some like tuition discounts and things like that. And so I'm happy to say I've actually taken business courses now. I have an MBA.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about the SBDC and how, in our podcast, we are reaching out to alumni and trying to help them professionally in different ways. And, today we're talking about starting a business, owning your own small business. What are kind of the top 2 or 3 things you think that every aspiring entrepreneur should focus on first in the beginning when they're getting ready to start?
The biggest thing to focus on, of course, there's never really one true path through this. There's no like prescription. There's some things that we need to do, and carts and horses get out of order sometimes. It's okay. We can work with that. But I think the biggest thing we need to work on are things like, we call it validation.
Sure.
Just because I think it's a good idea doesn't necessarily mean there are enough people out there willing to open their wallets and pay for it. And so like my business, we were publishing for independent software developers, mostly Linux and free and open source.
Yeah.
So I tell people there are computer nerds. And then if you go about 600 yards into the weeds, then you get to the Linux and free and open source guys. So even after 12 years of running my publishing company, I only had 35,000 customers in my database.
Sure.
So like opening a brick and mortar in a downtown somewhere was never going to be that kind of business. It was never also like we weren't building an enterprise either. I had a job where I could go be preschool field trip mom and then come home and do my work. And so I essentially had bought myself a job. But part of it too was just figuring out like, is there an actual problem people would pay for? Sure. Even things like somebody would be like, oh, Karlie, do you want a house on Mackinac Island? You're damn right I do.
Right.
But if you switch the question slightly to, are you going to buy a house on Mackinac Island? No.
Right.
That is not something I am going to do. Do I want it? Yes. Am I actually going to want it bad enough to pay for it? No. So usually that is one of the first places that I want to start with somebody, because we're going to find out whether this business has legs one way or the other. One, we can do it on paper.
Sure.
The other one, we've got a mortgage payment due.
Yeah. So that you really interest me in this part, because I think that's where we all start. We all have these grand ideas. I have several small business ideas. Don't worry, I'll pitch you later. Okay.
That's okay. Yeah, I'm here.
But how do we find out truly if they're really viable? Like, what are some of the steps you could take somebody through?
So one of the videos I give to folks a lot is it's a business model canvas contest.
Okay.
Humans are funny that way. Like, oh, you think you can dance? We're having a contest. You think you can run fast? Contest. You think your business model canvas is all that? We're having a contest.
Nice.
But it's the guys who created the Owlet baby monitor business. And they walk through. So the business model canvas is just kind of a framework to help us kind of figure out how the main pieces of a business might function together. And the reason I love it so much is because they'll say, we created this little experiment where we asked 100 nurses to give us a yes or no on this. And so that helped us kind of understand if we were barking up the wrong tree or not.
Sure.
Okay, so the nurses loved it, but now we went to hospital administrators with our same idea, and they said, yeah, we're not paying for that.
Right.
You guys are great. No, never going to be a thing. And so now they realize that the people who might want they're in their case, they were looking at like a wireless pulse oximeter. So one less wire to hook a patient up to in a clinical setting. And of course, the nurses were all like, yeah, one less thing to be tangled. Sign us up.
Sure.
But the hospital administrators were like, sounds expensive. It's not going to be a thing. And so this video walks through, and I asked my clients not to try to emulate everything that Owlet did, but to look at it in terms of what small experiment. And I'm thinking small in terms of small in dollars and small in time, to help them get a better idea of what people are actually wanting to do. So there are techniques like that we can use to help ferret things out. But like I said, I go back to my idea was like, this idea gets $300. When that money's gone, we're done.
Right.
So as long as you can keep money in the bank, keep rolling. So again, there's more than one way to skin a cat, but every client that comes in, we're going to kind of look at it individually.
So you mentioned about, the money in the bank and getting started and thinking about startup funds, thinking like funding, budgeting, finding investors, right?
Mm-hmm.
How would an entrepreneur, if I'd come to you with this great idea, we've gone out, tested it, we think it's very viable, how do we make that next step into making it a reality?
Okay, so some of it depends on, like, if this is something with collateral,
Sure.
we probably want to be talking about a bank loan. And again, no situation is going to be cookie cutter.
Right.
But in general, a bank loan is more possible with things like a good credit score and some sort of collateral and some skin in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So a bank would rather, they don't want to repossess your property and have to sell it because that's a pain in their butt.
Sure.
But if that's how they're going to recoup a bad loan, they would rather have something tangible that they can hold on to. If we're working on something that has more IP, so like software, patents, things of that nature, typically then we have to get ready to start doing like Silicon Valley style or Shark Tank style pitching.
Sure.
Where we need to get invited to a pitch competitions, or we need to get in front of investors, and we need to start kind of figuring out who those folks would be. So sometimes we call it's called bootstrapping. So if you build a business without taking a loan, we're just going to kind of use time and some careful budgeting to get where we need to be. And so a lot of these businesses that end up with multi-million-dollar venture capital deals really needed to start as bootstrapping, because we've got to show that there's something there,
right?
Rather than just, oh, well, I have $1 bazillion and here you go, and I don't care if it ever comes back. Said no rich person ever,
right?
So
if they are out there, you give
yeah,
them
if they are out there, I would love to speak to them, because I have a few ideas of my own to work on. Yeah, and so, but the thing with business is, even with the best planning, there's always going to be unknowns, because we're trying to predict the future. And so a lot of what my job is at the Small Business Development Center is to help somebody have good information so they can make good decisions about what they want to do with their business.
Yeah. That's
my job.
I would say when you put it that way, it makes a lot more sense. I've always thought of the SBDC as a resource, a place to go bounce ideas. Like, I need to learn about the certain thing, I can do that. But when we talk about resources, what locally or what resources are out there that you think aspiring entrepreneurs should be researching and trying to go find? Like, what are some things locally? Obviously the SBDC, like that's where I started.
So one of the reasons to start at the SBDC is we're free. I never have to bill my clients for the one-on-one conversations. So you can come talk to me whenever you want. I just need you to fill out we call it a request for consulting. once I have that, it's mostly name, address, phone number kind of stuff. One of our intake specialists will get you assigned to a consultant because I'm not a one
Sure.
person show up there. There's
Yeah.
more of us working in the region and then across the state as well. There's even SBDCs in every state and territory in the United States. So if you've got alumni outside of Michigan, they probably have an
Yeah.
SBDC close at hand as well. But we often talk about entrepreneurial ecosystems.
Uh-huh.
So, like, even today, I had a client this morning before we came to do this, and he has a physical product idea.
Uh-huh.
I referred him to SVSU to come
Yeah.
and work with our on-staff engineer to help him think about what he might need before he has a product that could even be patented.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey, Jim, I got one queuing up. I can't give you his name because of our confidentiality,
Right.
but he's on his way.
I love that you brought it because Jim was our second guest ever on this podcast, and we were talking about that exact thing. So
Yeah.
it's kind of full circle moment there.
Yeah. So it's a lot of what I'm doing is things like even just kind of keeping track of what's going on. And sometimes somebody needs to be over at CMURC. So that's the Central Michigan University's Research Center,
Yeah.
a research corporation. They have co-working space. They have additional programs. They're complementary. They, sometimes they're doing the exact same stuff that the SBDC is doing, but maybe that environment is more conducive. So go do what you need to do with these folks over here. Come on back. It's also kind of keeping a sort of a tally of what's going on with banking, who's doing what. Lately, I've also been doing a lot with childcare to help address the childcare shortage.
Yeah.
And so how can the SBDC and SVSU as a whole maybe fit into that industry? Because that's a huge economic development piece. And so if you're doing childcare, then we have other agencies and folks you need to talk to as well. So I don't know everything about every industry, but I can probably talk with you about trucking and hair salons too.
Right.
Just because we've had it. At least I have a good general idea of what's going on in most industries. So there's probably a resource, and worst comes to worst, I'll ask the rest of my crew if they know somebody who can fill in the blank.
I think the lesson in that, and it's a good lesson, is that, okay, you're the professional and you have a lot of knowledge. Just like, other industries, you go and you find that professional, but even that professional doesn't have every answer, but they know where to get the answer. And that's when we talk about entrepreneurship, right? That's where the real kind of rubber meets the road. The people who can find the answer, find out if their product or service is viable, right? Get through those steps, reach out to those resources. Those are the people that can be successful after launch.
Yeah, and not every business idea is going to make it. But whatever you learn, even through that failure, and a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to fail, especially here in academia. We don't fail, man. We don't fail.
Right.
But there's still lessons to be learned. And like, I am a small business consultant. So I can give small business advice. I cannot give legal advice. I am not a CPA. I am not a licensed insurance agent. But I can tell you what questions you should probably go ask that person.
Right.
I can probably tell you what's giving me the heebie-jeebies and what information we need to acquire before we move forward. And if you're not scared, I'm going to tell you why you should be.
Yeah.
But again, I also remind myself, like, it's not my business. It's not my business. My job is to help you run your business. It's not my business how you run it. Because ultimately, it's not my risk. And that's how I approach it, is also making sure that, like, I will teach you how to write a business plan. I am not writing your business plan for you. That is not what the SBDC does. And the reason is because I am not going to be sitting in the meeting with you and the banker. And if you don't know what's in your plan and you don't know what's in your numbers, you're not going to get your loan.
Right.
So my job is to, maybe stand over you and go, well, it's not done yet. And it's still, and now we got to do the math part of this. What are we doing here, gang? But if we can get somebody through that, I had a gal come in and she, her boss wanted to retire and sell the business. She had worked every role in that job except owner, and she was scared.
Yeah.
Never written a business plan before. And it took us the better part of a year, but we got her $1.2 million to buy him out, including the business, including the building and all the inventory, and keep like 15 people employed.
It's awesome.
But yeah, but to watch her go from, oh my God, this is scary, and I'm going to borrow $1 million. Yeah, honey, we're going to borrow $1 million. You're going to owe somebody $1 million, 1.2 if we're being exact. And these 15 people now work for you.
Yeah. I think this is a good place to transition because we talked a lot about starting up here. I want to now fast forward, not too far, but we're up to that point. Our business is out there. We are in that first year. What, we all envision, okay, I'm going to start this business. Money's going to start rolling in, right? But really, what does success look like in the first year after a new business starts? Is it simply the budgeting, or are there other metrics and marks that we can look for to see this might be a long-term?
Well, yeah, most of this is going to be long game kind of stuff.
Sure.
The first thing, so I'm more of a marketing and comms kind of brain, not necessarily an accounting finance kind of brain. I've been doing this long enough that when I look at your numbers and if something immediately jumps out at me, oh boy, if I saw it quick, there's other things to find here, because I know I can give it to one of my former bankers or my finance folks, and they're going to go, holy cow. But what I typically look at, even we're just doing the financial projections, most banks are going to want to see 36 months of financial projections. And essentially we're basically playing the business like a board game. The banker doesn't care if you predicted down to the nickel what's happening 14 months from now. What they're looking for is you understand the ebb and flow and how money comes in and out of this business. And so one of my kind of quick and dirty methods is to check and see, did you run out of money? Because if your balance went below zero, that's the day you went out of business. And we need to figure out how to do, do we need to put more money into the system? Do we need to put off a big purchase? How are we going to do this to get the money where it needs to be? So usually in the first couple years, that key metric is cash flow. Do you have enough money to pay your bills and keep the lights on and employees and all that kind of stuff? That's usually the biggest piece. But when we're also looking at stuff, there can be key performance indicators that we will track toward, are we actually growing? And some of that will be in accounting reports. So a P&L, I think of it like the speedometer. Cash flow is your gas tank. So you could be growing and going gangbusters. It'd be like going 90 miles an hour down the highway, but you got fumes in the tank. And so we need to look at all those things. The third is called the balance sheet. And that's basically just what you own versus what you owe. And although that gives us additional information, for me, the first, the two big ones are the P&L and the cash flow, and probably more emphasis on cash flow for me, because you don't have any money, it doesn't matter.
Right. It's interesting. I mean, those are a lot of different KPIs or metrics to take a look at. What are maybe some of the warning signs, for 12 months in, 18 months in? Obviously there's the big ones, right? We have a negative cash flow. We don't have money in the bank, right? Those are the obvious ones. But what are some other things to kind of watch out for that might tell us, oh, our business is in trouble and we want to catch this before it becomes a bigger problem?
Yeah, some of it is, again, even just daily receipts. Are we trending a different direction? I also look for things like, what is the chatter on review sites? Are there grumblings with the employees?
Sure.
What is going on? And sometimes that is because the person who is really good at managing the chaos of a startup is not necessarily the person who is a good CEO for long-term growth. And so sometimes the techniques that worked to get you scrappy and get you where you are today does not allow you to create a business that you could, retire and sell on to somebody else. So sometimes we need to go through a process. Our SBDC wrote a book a few years ago called Focus 4, and it was designed for businesses that are, sometimes we call it the $1 million barrier, that they're about to do $1 million annually. It's also sometimes called a second stage business. And so again, it's coming out of that chaos of a startup.
Yep.
And now we need to start acting more like a grown-up, business.
Mm-hmm.
I like to give my clients focus 4 as early in the process as possible so that they can start seeing what we're trying to build toward, what skills we need to develop. And some people are just not great managers. So sometimes we got to work on leadership skills and, just management kind of stuff rather than dive into the, because every once in a while it'll come up and they'll be like, nobody wants to work. And I'm like, well, you forgot the last 2 words, which is for you.
Right.
Because why would nobody's going to care about this business as more than you do as the owner. And so if nobody wants to come work for you, what are the circumstances around that? Do we need to get more competitive with your pay or benefits or things of that nature? Is it more attractive for these employees to work in fast food than to work for you? Then then that's an us problem and not a whippersnappers don't want to get out of bed problem.
Yeah. It's funny when you say that, I've always envisioned your work kind of, again, as that consultant problem solver.
Mm-hmm.
I think as you say that, there might be a little bit of a clinical therapist in this.
Yes,
and sitting back and saying, okay, let's take it easy. Let's manage what's important the most. So how do you counsel clients on managing kind of the emotional toll that it takes to run their own business?
Sometimes it takes a lot of tough love.
Yeah.
And I am not a clinical psychologist. I am not a licensed counselor. I am not a clinical social worker. I am your small business consultant.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some times where I do get a client and I am going, holy cow, man, this is way out of my league. And some of the jokes I give to the new consultants is a huge part of my job is learning how to say things like, are you on crack in the most politically correct, appropriate, we're not talking to HR today kind of way. But there are ways. I actually built a tool, an AI tool that I call it like consulting jujitsu or something. The idea that we're going to use somebody's body weight against them in a martial art versus things like if I get somebody who's not catching the message, I can give session notes or a bit of background on it to this AI, and it gives me archetypes. And it also then gives me suggestions on saying things like, well, if you keep pressing them that they want to go faster, you might want to say to them, the fastest way to do this is to get that cash flow done.
Right.
So that it's helping me. Again, it's not to diagnose, but it's really just to help me find the words that are most helpful for the client.
Sure.
The hardest meeting for me is always the first meeting because I don't know what they do or do not know. And I don't want to treat somebody like they just fell off the turnip truck, nor do I want to be so over their heads with terminology that they leave the meeting going I went to that girl for help and I'm still confused. So I'm trying to find that middle space. And so this consulting food jujitsu kind of AI tool that I built was to just help me kind of step back and realize I can say the same thing again and again and again, but if they don't understand what that means, it's not helpful. So how can I be a better consultant and maybe guide them into, again, that point where they understand, oh, this is important and here's why my business needs this to get where I want to be.
Sure.
Because, we're going to be done in an hour and I'm going to move on to another client, but this person is going to go home and still have to work with this problem. So how can I make sure that they have enough to make progress on their own?
That's interesting. You mentioned a lot about that first visit, and what just a random question I have. What's the biggest misconception people have about starting a business when they come in? What's the one you're just like, okay, here it comes again?
So I get a lot of, I saw it on social media, fill in whatever platform, and this guy said, I just have to, and then I'm a bazillionaire. And I'm like, okay, we've got it's really like the overnight success issue.
Sure.
Nothing is an overnight success. No one on the planet has ever been an overnight success.
Right.
The reason our human brains get there is because I didn't hear about you, and then all of a sudden I know about you, and you're already doing fabulous stuff. And
Right.
our brains forget that there was probably decades or years of stuff that you
Sure.
did to get there. Um, and so sometimes you are building an enterprise.
Right.
Sometimes you could be building something that is going to take you to, Steve Jobs levels of income. But I want people to think about owning a small business like Little League Baseball. We're going to have a bunch of kids. They're going to sign up for T-ball.
Mhm.
Some of them are going to like it. Some of them won't even finish the season. All right, cool. We come back next year and we're at coach pitch. We might have a few new people come in. We might have a few kids who are like, yeah, we're not baseballers. And on and on and on. And so at every level, so then they go into the middle-aged
Mhm.
kind of teenager, and then they get on the travel team, and then a certain number of kids won't make it to the high school team, and then a certain number of those high school superstars won't make it to a college scholarship.
Sure.
And a certain number of those are also going to be attrition, and they're not going to make it to the major leagues.
Right.
And fill in the blank on any sport. And so there's always going to be a lot of us who come along, and some of us there's some reason we don't make it. And that could be, I had a lot of talent, but I didn't have a good coach. Or I was mediocre talent, but I had an amazing coach, or I had these other resources, or like, what's the reason I don't play hockey? My family didn't have let's play hockey money.
Right.
We couldn't afford a sport like hockey. Things like that. Like people are like, oh, you don't ski? Yeah, I was not a we go skiing income.
Sure.
Like that's not our socioeconomic bracket. We didn't have ski money. So like maybe I would have been an amazing skier, but it just never got that opportunity. So there's so many little pieces along the way. But with business, factor in the economy.
Right.
Not anybody, but it's much easier to earn a living when the economy is booming.
Yeah.
Business acumen is going to come into play when it's not. And so can you get the knowledge you need to be just ahead of the curve? I don't know.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of things. And so again, we're predicting the future. And I if I could predict the future, I would have had winning lottery tickets by now.
Right.
There'd be easier ways.
For that.
Yeah.
So we're coming to the end of our conversation, and this has been really helpful. I really appreciate it. But we always end with one big question, and that is, I want you to envision a young alumni out there who's ready to make the jump, and they want to start their own business.
Okay.
What would be the big, single most important piece of advice that you would give that individual right at the beginning?
I would send them to michigansbdc.org to get registered. But again, if Michigan SBDC is not your jam, that's okay. But don't just trust what your AI kicks out for you. Don't just trust what some influencer, because like my biggest thing right now too is like, well, if you buy my workshop, then you'll be this and that. And I'm like, if you could be a bazillionaire doing the thing you're training these people to do, why are you selling the workshops?
Right.
And maybe there's a legit reason, but it's also things like question everything and question your instincts as well. You might have really good instincts and that might take you a long way, but let's try to find a third-party verification on whether or not the trees we're barking up are the correct ones.
I think I love what you said there. And I think what I hear out of it is, the key to being successful in business and really being successful in general. But the real key in it is being able to critically think about the resources that are available to you. Folks like the SBDC and here in the state of Michigan, obviously here at SVSU are really good. Sorry to give you a plug, right?
Yeah.
Are really good in you can go in there and trust what they have to say and know that they're going to sit back and take a look at the whole picture. You're not going to come with some kind of cookie cutter influencer.
I'm not a take two of these and call me in the morning kind of consultant. Right. So again, like that first meeting, sometimes I'm asking some seemingly random, odd questions because I'm trying to get a picture of what's actually happening.
Right.
why do you believe the thing you believe?
Right.
Maybe that's news to me. It doesn't mean because I've never heard it before makes it wrong.
Sure.
But I too am looking for the what's underneath here, what's driving this? Because
Right.
honestly, in the grand scheme of things, people are like, oh, I want to be my own boss. I
Mhm.
had 35,000 individual bosses.
Right.
And sometimes that is better, and sometimes that is a way worse.
Mhm.
So we have to think about, like, if something interests me, I will
Mhm.
absolutely work 70 hours a week at it
Sure.
because it's something I want. But
Right.
if somebody else is telling me to work 70 hours a week,
Yeah.
no.
No.
So we've gotta figure some things out. But if a community college dropout
Mhm.
can grab those pieces along the way,
Right.
I think if you're reasonably intelligent, which
Mhm.
almost all of us are,
Mhm.
you can do this. It might just not happen this year.
Mhm.
Might not happen next week. We might have to work on this a bit. We might
Sure.
have to do some of the work while we work on something like a credit score
Mhm.
and get that up. So there's a lot of moving parts. And so
Yeah.
if we can get you over the line, we'll get you there. But we can do everything from startup to helping you sell your business.
Yeah.
Everything in between. We've got experts on HR. We've got experts on online marketing,
Mhm.
finance, you name it, we've got an expert. We even have a team that'll help you with exporting. If you need
Sure.
to figure out landed costs for some random country, we got a team that can help with that as well. And like I said, we're free. We just need a registration first.
It's awesome. Well, Karlie, thank you for your time. I appreciate you coming in.
I'm so glad you had me.
This has been a lot of fun and I think really helpful. I think the people listening in, there's a lot to glean from this. So I appreciate all of it.
Well, thanks for inviting me in, Nick. Anytime I'll help.
Absolutely. So for those of you out there, this has been the Cardinals Stand Out in Your Career podcast. Just a quick reminder, be sure to check us out at svsu.edu/alumni for all the latest news, events, resources that we offer for all of our alumni. And as always, it's a great day to be a Cardinal. Thank you. Ryan, you were recording, right? What?